Thanks a lot for the introduction. Yeah, thank you for coming for another keynote about textile-to-textile recycling. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like we heard and we talked so much about textile-to-textile recycling within the last years, didn't we? So I think we're talking and talking and talking, but who is actually doing recycling? Who is actually doing textile-to-textile recycling nowadays? And what do we have to do to come from talking to really doing it in practice? And I want to show you today what we at Turns do to establish textile-to-textile recycling. And I want to ask you the question and answer together with you the question today: is the future of textile-to-textile recycling the vertically integrated model? In the next 40 minutes, or 30 to 40 minutes, I will tell you why recycling is not recycling. What do I mean by that? And I will explain you in theory what we at Turns mean by the vertical model. Maybe you know the term vertical production, and we in textile industry, we understand what vertical production means, but what is the vertical model? And what do we need to do to integrate this vertical model for circularity into our supply chains? What are the challenges and specifics to really implement textile-to-textile recycling? And then, in the end, of course, which success stories were we able to write already at Turns and with Turns? First of all, my name is Angelique Tümmerer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Turns, and together with my dear colleague and co-founder Katja Wagner, we started our startup and founded our company 3 years ago with the goal to really establish textile-to-textile recycling in the field. We're based near Nuremberg in Ansbach. And what we do is we enable textile circularity for industry companies and for brands, meaning that we organize and manage the whole supply chain from collecting and taking back textile waste up to the new product. We make it easy for companies of all sizes to make value out of their waste, and not only value, but new products that they can sell again. So what do I mean by recycling is not recycling? Before we go into theory and we talk about what is manageable and doable today, we need to find our system in what we do and what I talk about today. By recycling is not recycling, I mean that when we talk about textile-to-textile recycling, it's not PET bottle recycling to textile. It's not fabric and industry waste or industrial waste recycling to textile, but it's post-consumer waste textile recycling. So that means the products that are waste nowadays, that are textile nowadays, how can we make them and rebuild new resources out of them? And I think this is important. That does not mean that it's not important to build up systems and infrastructure for recycling industrial waste and so on. But what we will see also in the next minutes is that it's a completely different complexity of collecting post-consumer waste and rebuilding post-consumer waste to a new material and resource. So, with that being said, post-consumer textile recycling is way more complex due to 3 main reasons. You may know this already, but we at Turns, we point out these 3 complexities being the most important ones. First of all, we all know that we have a variety of material compositions, and that makes, for our point of view, as being the recycler, being the system designer, it very complex to get high volumes in equivalent qualities, to make it also economically feasible to collect and sort textiles. And then the next point is the pollutions that we have with post-consumer textile waste. We don't know the way that the product, that the textile had during his life. And at the end of life, we don't know what has happened between the store when the product was sold and afterwards when we collect it again. And we don't have proper and high industrial scale technologies for this nowadays. So this is still something that we need to solve. And then, of course, it's the high costs. This is also nothing new to all of us, but collection, sorting, and recycling is much more of higher costs than just buying the new virgin materials. So what we really need to achieve in the future is equivalency between the prices of virgin materials and recycled materials. But that does not mean that this must be the status quo in the future. So before we go to the vertical model and the theory and how to solve all of these problems, let's see what the current status quo is. Of course, we don't have infrastructure for collection, sorting the post-consumer textile waste. And the existing infrastructure that we have for post-consumer textile waste is just not for recycling. We have an infrastructure for collection and sorting of post-consumer textile waste for second-hand, but not for recycling. So we really need to build that up. And then, of course, we really need to think that post-consumer recycled content, the new recycled fibers, they are a new material that also our supply chains do not know so far. We cannot just compare a virgin fiber with a recycled one, but we need to accept, and also our producers and so on, we need to accept that this is a new material with a new value. And what also makes things much more complex, we don't have data standards, or we have a lack of data, of course, in textile industry, that is just not also standardized through the whole industry. And that makes the world for us as recyclers, as collectors, much more complex. So this is something that we need to solve to really establish textile-to-textile recycling in the future. Before we go more in the depth of the vertical model, I just want to point out that when we talk about circularity, when we talk about sustainability in the textile industry, we should not forget. Of course, we're talking a lot about recycling, but this is just one part of the whole waste hierarchy that we should think about. So first of all, of course, we need a design for recycling and repair, and also reuse and resale should be part of our strategies as brands when we think about circularity and sustainability in the future. But of course, recycling is the way to really scale up circularity. Okay, so I don't know if you have already an idea when I talk about the vertical model. Let's go a little bit more in the depth of what I mean by this. What we faced when Katja and I founded our company, we thought, okay, how to solve the recycling, how to really bring this new recycled fiber back into the textile production chain. We faced that it's complex. Everything is complex, starting from the collection up to who will be my recycler, how should the textiles be sorted, and what can I produce, which kind of product, which type of yarn can I produce out of this recycled fiber. Every point from the collection to the sorting, recycling, and the new production has its own new complexities. And we found out that the industry needs a service provider, someone who's building the dots, who's connecting all those different stakeholders. And by this, we mean we make it as easy as possible for brands and industry companies and everyone who has post-consumer textile waste. They can just register online in our software that they have textile waste, they send it to Turns, and we manage and organize the whole process. And in the end, they should buy and they can buy out new either recycled fibers or fabrics or even the final product. What we mean by the vertical model is that when you think about vertical production, you may have started with the material, with the fiber, and then you did the production until the final product. But in circularity, in this terms of making waste to value, we start earlier. We need to integrate into this whole production the part of collection and sorting and recycling. And this is the new part about it, why we don't talk about vertical production, but the vertical model. Why do we need this vertical model? So why do we see that we can write success stories with this model that we build up to a business in the last years? So first of all, I said this already, is the complexity of the supply chains. So we work with the new material when we add post-consumer recycled fibers. And this comes at all points during the supply chain to new problems for which we need to find new solutions. And that is what we manage and do. And then one really important thing is the quantities need to be in balance. Thinking about you are a brand and you think about, okay, how much textile waste do I have? Which textile waste do I have? What am I going to do with this? Then you may have 1 ton of one material and 1 ton of a different material or a different color. And then you are limited to the production of a new collection because you can only balance your own quantities in waste and products. But maybe you're a company that only has waste and is not interested in using this recycled fiber. Or you're a brand that wants to use recycled fibers in high volumes, but you don't have the amount and the volumes of waste that you would have needed for this. So what we do at Turns and what a vertical model and the system itself provides is balancing this out. When we have different brands and companies bringing in volumes of waste, we can balance this with the second part, stakeholder part, who wants to buy out new fibers or new products. And from this, the whole industry has an advantage because we collaborate, we work together. We always tell that for circularity, we need collaboration and we need to work all together. And with Turns and with this vertical model, we just give this collaboration a system. And then, of course, what is really, really important, not only due to the legislations coming, but also for me as a brand, when I want to communicate that I have a better option for my waste than just burning it, or when I use recycled content, I need transparency. I need to be able to prove that this is really recycled content that I use from a certain location. And that is also what we are able to do with our vertical model and with our system at Turns, and what this systemization of collaboration brings. Okay, so much about the theory, but how does this actually work, especially at Turns and in practice? What we faced, the key to successful textile-to-textile recycling, and especially to textile-to-textile recycling on industrial scale, and textile-to-textile recycling which is economically feasible, is a lean, digital, and decentralized process. What we do is, I said this before, we build up a system, a digital one, and a software which makes it easy for brands or companies of all sizes to just online register that they have textile waste. Then they can select if they want to deliver the textiles to one of our sorting facilities by themselves, or we should pick it up. It's that easy, 3 clicks and it's done. And then you can just online take a look at where does your waste go? How recyclable is it? Because all the steps in this whole circle are connected digitally together. When the waste comes to one of our sorting facilities in Germany and Austria, they get sorted, and the sorting facilities, it's a manual sorting which is supplied by a technical fiber-to-fiber material composition analyzer based on NER. They use our Turns app to enter the volumes and to give us the information which kind of textile waste did come from the customer and where will it go. So we really track, based on you as a customer, which kind of textile waste did you have, how recyclable is it, and where does it go. Then the third step is the mechanical recycling. We at Turns, we see ourselves as a system that is open for all kinds of recycling technologies. But today we take back cotton and polycotton textile waste, and we do mechanical recycling because this is already possible on industrial scale. And then the textile waste gets recycled. We get new staple fibers. And these staple fibers are mixed up with virgin new fibers in a composition that we need in the end for the end product. And we spin new yarns. And at this point, the supply chains get really complex, and the supply chain reach all over the world. And we are really the managers of all of these supply chains. That in the end, it's easy for the customer. They just brought their waste to Turns, and in the end, they can buy out new fibers, yarns, fabrics, or the new product out of it. That's how it works today. So what's the difference to others, or what's new with this model? It's that we combine the operational infrastructure and the digital world. We are not just a software provider, not just a software which is not operating, but you can really send back your textiles, and meanwhile you get your data online. That's the new thing about it. And what we think at Turns, of course, is the way to success to really establish textile to textile. So why is this working? First of all, we have controlled collection channels. We are mainly in the workwear industry so far. We also start with retail collections. But of course, that means that we have a controlled input material of homogeneous, high-quality inputs. And it's much more easy, if you think about that, to sort workwear and outdoor workwear than just the stuff that is in the public collections. That's one of the first things to tell about this success story. But that does not mean that we could not enhance this whole system to different collection streams. And then, of course, we manage the whole supply chain. Before working together with Turns, the brands had a whole team that had to manage the new supply chain, the recycling, everything they needed to do by themselves. And now they can just give it back and buy out new stuff. And we organize everything. And also we centralize everything. And then the digital tracking of the waste streams is something that really makes communication about circularity easy. And on the next side, in the future, it will also help brands to be prepared for the legislations. And then, in the end, the most important point is that we always think back from the product. The product is still the center of everything we do. We don't think about, okay, we have waste, what can we do out of it? It's vice versa. We think about, okay, we have a product, and which kind of yarn, which kind of technical constructions do I need for this? And is it possible to add recycled content? And how much recycled content? So the important thing here is to, in the end, be able to sell a product again. We don't have a loss in quality. Okay, sounds great, sounds easy, right? Why was no one doing it before? What are the challenges and specifics about doing all of this, the whole circle in circularity? So first of all, we need a lot of competences in our company and a holistic thinking, from really like being able to understand legislation for waste and thinking like someone who is managing waste. On the other side, being a textile producer and understanding and not only textile supply chains, but also textile production, textile technical details, and so on. And then, as you saw before, we have a lot of different stakeholders. On the one side, we do not only have one kind of customer. We have the one customer that just wants to get rid of their waste. And on the other side, we have brands and customers that really want to buy high-quality products or fabrics with recycled content. And this comes together in our company. We just don't have this one direction. And then, of course, it's the financial flow. Thinking about normally, when you think about vertical production, you buy in a virgin material and then you sell a textile product in the end. And you need to have the cash flow for this production. But we as a company, we need to have the cash flow from the waste up until the new product. So it's much longer. So that's definitely a challenge. And the reverse logistics. I don't know if you were integrated or worked in a team for circularity already, but logistics can be the hardest part, especially for reverse logistics. So we also talked to customer and brands already that said, okay, it did not work out with the logistics, so it's not manageable to establish recycling in our company. And that's also what we faced, but we found solutions to really be able to have efficient, also economically efficient reverse logistics. And as you saw before, one of the solutions in this part is that we really have decentralized sorting facilities, small sorting facilities, not one big, because transport costs are high. And then regulation. Regulation, of course, is helping us, all of you. I don't need to tell you about what's coming, EPR, eco-design, and that we are not allowed to burn anymore. We need to collect textiles separately and so on. This helps us on the one side as a startup and a new company, but on the other side, legislation will only come by 2028. So everyone is still waiting. What will be the details of the legislation and so on. And before we don't have clear instructions here, people and the industry is really like, okay, let's wait, let's see. And then quality and standards. I said this before, we don't have data standards. This will be better in future with DPP, of course. But nowadays, we as a recycler, as a collector, we cannot just hop and build on a data standard and an infrastructure that is already working and common sense in the industry. And transparency, I said this before. We add this to our whole model. We add this to the Turn Circular system because we believe a recycled content has a much higher value when I can show to my customer and also to the public and legislation where my waste comes from, and it's not just any recycled content from anywhere in the world. Okay, so, but why am I standing right here? What are the success stories? What did we reach so far and succeed so far? First of all, we have over 140 customers driving circularity today who are like feeding in their post-consumer waste into the Turn Circular system, and on the other side also buying out new fibers or fabrics or even the finished garments. And what you may see here is mainly not the fashion industry, but it's the big industry companies, it's public institutions, it's the workwear industry. And that's what we face also. Like, we have here a really interesting market and companies that are really driving circularity because they want to invest in future and they want to really be the forerunners in this field. And one retail success story that we always tell, because I think every one of us knows the DM markets all over Europe and especially here in Germany. They put a lot, they were collecting in their markets textile waste already. And now you can buy tea towels and different products in the DM markets out of post-consumer textile waste, which was being recycled within the Turns Circular system. And then another success story from the workwear industry is together with Hakro, where we already back in 2023 presented the first collection out of post-consumer textile waste collected by Hakro, and which then the Hakro workwear gets recycled and is in Hello Again, a new brand, a launchwear collection. And what we saw and faced is that the success of textile-to-textile recycling in the future won't be built by the best recycler or the best producer or so on. Because we all told each other a lot, we need collaboration for textile-to-textile recycling and especially for circularity. And with the system around it, we believe that success for textile recycling will be successfully built up by the best system designer and the ones who really build the infrastructure for everyone in textile industry to have advantages in just bringing it all together and not just doing it on your own. Yeah, and that already is my end. I'm happy to get to know you maybe personally. We have the booth in EN09. It's directly in this hall in the entrance. Looking forward to get to meet you, or also my colleagues. Thank you for being here and being my audience today.
Thank you, Angie. Before you disappear, maybe we have some questions from the audience. And if we don't, I actually do. You mentioned recycling cotton and polycotton. Are you considering other materials in the future?
Yeah, if there's a demand for the fibers. What's always important for us is that there's a demand and someone who's really willing to buy back this new recycled fiber. So we could also build up the supply chains for a polyester recycling or a new recycling technology for polycotton. There are some great already.
Yeah, that was the next question. Technologies. You mentioned mechanical, but there are so many out there. Are you considering other technologies?
Definitely, we see each other in the future as a system and a platform which connects and finds the best recycling route for each textile. So we started with the easy way, but we need to start somewhere, right? So we started with workwear, polycotton and poly, and mechanical recycling, which is an old technology, but it can advance and enhance to everything else.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have any questions? No? Before you disappear, maybe you can remind everybody where we can find you on the show.
Yeah, we're directly in this hall C1. In the entrance, it's IN09.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.